Welcome to another edition of the Insider Hoop Scoop. I'm Jarret Johnson. I'm joined by the Mighty Joe Yeager. Mighty Joe, man, 4-0 start. At the time of us shooting this, Texas Tech had just had that miraculous, just unbelievably entertaining performance against USC in the semifinal of the Hall of Fame Classic. So, Joe, what did you think about that complete turnaround from just abysmal? I mean, to me, just the lack of emotion and physicality really stood out in the first half. And then it was obviously the complete opposite and great shooting in the second half. What was your reaction to that?
Yeah, it was it was pretty mind-boggling. It really was. I mean, in the second half, they played almost a perfect game.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, when you're shooting 80% or 82 or whatever it was, 3 turnovers, and then you outscore the opposition, and a good opponent, by the way.
Right.
The way they did, it just blew their doors off. I mean, it was just a steady, inexorable overcoming of that 9-point deficit. They caught up with them pretty quickly, and then just steadily pulled away. It was, at one point they were trading baskets there. It was like heavyweights throwing blows at one another, and which one would buckle, and USC buckled, and Tech kept on slugging. It was just really, I haven't seen a better half out of Texas Tech basketball. Last year, obviously, they played many great halves, but I mean, it's hard to.
Kansas, they're at Kansas, that was kind of a whole game thing where they just played but as far as for one half, I don't know if I've seen them play as good as they did last night.
I mean, you can't play much better than that. Now, in the first half, obviously, it was, you kind of wondered, there was a time there where I thought, well, Tech's about to get blown out here.
Yeah.
I mean,
they were down by 13, I believe, at one point.
13, yeah. And really, the guard situation was bad. I mean, they just couldn't get anything going to the basket. They couldn't drive all the way in. They were too physical and too long around the perimeter. And I was like, man, I don't know what they can do to get it together. But they made some adjustments at halftime. I mean, it's clear that was the case, and attitude adjustments as well.
Right.
But whatever, the ignition was lit at halftime, and we saw this happen against a much lesser opponent, Incarnate Word, where Tech was just kind of, muddling along and led by 5 at halftime, and then came out and what did they win by 50 or some crazy number like that. I mean, so there is precedent for this of Texas Tech just exploding in the second half, and we'll just have to see if that's going to become a common theme for this team.
Hey, Joe, you wrote in your Yeager shots, I thought it was a really good point, that maybe kind of they broke the seal, this team, as far as finding its identity. Now, obviously, I don't think anyone's suggesting they're going to shoot 80%, and with 3 turnovers, have that kind of success necessarily, as they did in the second half. But, for example, guys like Mooney, who had been kind of passive. I even asked him about it in a presser, and you mentioned it a couple of times that he was looking to pass and set guys up more than for his own shot, passing up open looks. That didn't happen in the second half. Him, Moretti, Culver, they were going to the hoop. They had that eye of the tiger, for lack of a better term, in the second half. And I think if they play with that kind of aggressiveness, I think they're going to be tough to beat. And I'd like you to kind of expound on that thought of maybe finding that identity.
Yeah, well, it was just the best way I can describe it. The best metaphor, I suppose, is up to that point, this team was kind of a fuzzy, blurry team, kind of out of focus. You didn't know exactly what you're going to get from them exactly. It was hard to define the team. But then, boom, in that second half, everything snapped into focus.
Yeah.
Everything just became clear, and you saw what this team could be. And it starts with those 3 guards. I mean, we knew Culver, what he could do. We suspected what the other 2 guys could do, Mooney and Moretti. And it all happened. It all came together. You had that 3-prong attack at the guard position that, I mean, there were questions about the offense. What was going to happen without Keenan Evans and so forth? Where's the scoring going to come from?
So.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, there was a clear answer and a dang good one last night. So if Tech can have a 3-prong guard attack like that, the triplets, where you're going to have a hard time guarding all those guys, and then you get a little bit of something from Owens and Odiasi as well. And I'm not talking about the 18 points that Owens got last night, but just somewhere around 10, then you've got something to work with definitely on offense. So maybe that's the way this team is going to be. Maybe that's the identity, is 3 really good guards, and then a little bit of stuff inside here and there, and you make that work, of course, with the great defense that the team always has with Chris Beard and Mark Adams. and then you got it going, and you could have another darn good season.
How nice is it to have an identity? When you look at this Tech team, we know they're going to play good defense. I mean, I can't remember a time that they just didn't play good defense under Chris Beard, at least this year and last year, and then for a lot of even his first year. But basically for the last year and then 5 through 4 games so far this season, I mean, you could just depend on that they're going to play hard, sound, tough defense for most of the game. How nice is it to have that identity, to be able to count on that?
Sure, yeah, and I mean, look, when Tech was struggling that badly on offense last night, what kept them in the game? What kept them in contact? Yep. Defense. You know, it was a 9-point deficit at halftime. That's, I mean, in college basketball these days with a 3-point shot and everything, that's not that big of a deal. But if they hadn't had that defense to fall back on, that might have been a 20-point deficit at halftime. And then it's a different situation altogether. So yes, against just about anybody except for maybe Duke, I suppose, that defense is going to be good enough to keep you in it. And then if the other guys start getting hot on offense, then you got a really good shot at winning.
I have a couple concerns I think we should bring up, though. Francis has kind of no-showed here recently, and it's a guy that Beard has said they need him to have his best season for them to accomplish what they want to this year, and we haven't seen that yet, to be honest. You know, we haven't seen. And then the bench just overall didn't really provide a whole lot of scoring punch. Now, they provided some minutes, but I feel like they're going to need, at some point, they're going to need a Corprew or a Kyler Edwards or Francis or someone off the bench to provide points more than just minutes and quality defense. They need to provide a scoring punch off the bench.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, look, Francis has the experience and he's got the ability. You know, I mean, we know that is not an issue. But sometimes he just doesn't seem engaged. You know, I mean, a lot of times you'll see him just kind of floating around on the perimeter, just kind of standing around watching, and that's death to the motion offense. You've got to have all 5 guys cutting, screening, moving. It's got to be a machine, working in concert. And if one of your 5 guys is out there kind of just standing around, that's like a V8 engine that has a couple of cylinders that aren't firing. You're not going to be going very fast. So, Francis has got to decide that he's going to focus in and give maximum effort. And if he does that, then he's not going to be just a warm body out there. That's a guy that's going to make major contributions for a team that can be very special. Does he want to do that? He got 23 minutes last night, I believe it was. So Beard is still going to him. But I think he's 0 for 7 with these last 2 games. I think he was 0 for 4 against Southeast and then 0 for 3 last night. He's got to start hitting some shots. We know he can do it. I mean, he's got a good stroke.
Before.
Sure, he has. He's hit big shots in clutch situations before, and they need him to be able to do that again. And as far as the rest of the bench goes, I'm going to have to, until further notice, say that last night was maybe an aberration because the bench had been very good up to this point. So hopefully this isn't just a function of, okay, the bench ran into a really good opponent for the first time and hit the wall. So we'll have to see. That's going to be something to watch tonight against Nebraska for sure.
Absolutely. Speaking of Nebraska, Texas Tech takes on number 25 Nebraska. Both teams are 4-0 in the Hall of Fame Classic Championship game. It's on 8:30 p.m. Central Time on, I believe, ESPN2. It's going to air. They're playing at the Spirit Center in Kansas City. Man, the Cornhuskers is crazy. They're so down in football right now, rebuilding, and their basketball team seems to be really good. I mean, really one of the top, probably 20, if not better than that, teams. It looks like early on. Big test for the Red Raiders. What do you expect tonight?
Yeah, Nebraska is the real deal. I mean, if I had a vote, I'd probably put them in my top 10. I mean, I think they're that good.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and before the USC game, I thought Tech was going to be in serious trouble against Nebraska. I feel better about the game now. I really do. I think it's going to be a very competitive game. But Nebraska has a lot of the stuff that sort of gave Tech trouble in the first half against USC. Athletic, long-armed. They can kind of get after you on defense and clog up the passing lanes, make it difficult to move the ball and get to the cylinder. That's going to be the key is again, those guards, those 3 guards, really being able to make it happen again. And against Nebraska, if you have a bad first half, it may be too late. I mean, because they're good enough that they can just totally leave you in the dust. So they need to play better in the first half to keep everything close. And then, you know, it's going to be, I believe, if they do that, very, very competitive game down the stretch. You know, who makes the big plays down in the final moments.
You know, Nebraska strikes me as a story similar to Tech's last year, just in that they have something to prove. You can tell they're out to prove something. They feel like they should have been a tournament team last year, and sometimes that gets overhyped. But yeah, I mentioned Eye of the Tiger earlier. This team certainly seems to have it. They know each other, experienced team, like you said. So it's a huge test for the Red Raiders, but a great opportunity, because if Tech wins this game, goes to 5-0, their resume is already looking really good. You get a win over USC, who I think is going to be pretty good in the Pac-12. Nebraska, who's, I mean, top 10, they're obviously going to at least figure in the Big Ten. So yeah, if you could find a way to win tonight, your resume is looking really good as far as the NCAA tournament. So,
yeah. Not only that, but is the resume looking good? But you have proved yourself at that point as a legitimately good team, as a team that is not going to be 7th in the Big 12 or anything like these submoronic preseason predictions that we've seen. You take care. You win this tournament, and you've served notice that everybody in the Big 12 better look out, because the Red Raiders are still here.
All right, Joe, man, really looking forward to the game tonight. It was so much fun against USC on Monday night. Great stuff from you as always. Thank y'all for watching, and until next time.